Hello everyone, and welcome to the NC channel. Today I'm going to share my experience in Bydgoszcz. Hope you enjoyed this visual storytelling experience, and please subscribe to the channel. One day I was sitting at my desk when a new email came in. It was an interview for a role in a company I found to be quite interesting. Excitedly, I clicked on the email and then read the location of the job. It was Bydgoszcz. My brain refused to process the combination of letters Bydgoszcz, and I had no clue where that was. I was pretty confused because I couldn't remember applying to that location that I was sure wasn't France. Anyway, I replied the email and said that I was open to having interviews for the role. Later that evening, I spoke with one of my Indian friends who seems to know everything about everything, and he told me that it was a quaint city in Poland, and anyone from Western Europe was always mega rich over there. Please give me a few minutes to roll my eyes at this. 1 month later. I'm thinking of taking up that job in Poland, I told my friends. All of them were shocked with different reactions.
You are going where? Are you crazy?
Where is Poland? Is it in Europe? It is my country. Don't go there. Bydgoszcz is just a tiny village with nothing in it.
They beat up and kill foreigners of color there. They are all racists.
Oh la la, you are going to freeze there.
The people there are always drunk. They drink vodka for breakfast.
What is Poland? Is that where polar bears live?
I can't even believe that you would consider going to Poland, Romania, Russia, Middle East kind of countries. Ugh.
Think of it. The people there are all running to the UK to take up whatever job they can find there. There must be something to that. Just think. And then,
Oh, that's my native country. We're hospitable people. There are lots of hidden gems in my country.
after toying with the idea for a while, I decided to give the move a try, to the surprise of my friends and the disquietude of my family. If I don't like it, I said to myself, I will just run back to Paris. Armed with a huge collection of very warm clothes and basic Polish words, most of which I promptly forgot, I boarded the night train from France with transit in Germany and then to Poland. Finally, I reached Poznan, a city in Poland. I had come in with 4 heavy suitcases, none of which I could actually lift myself. The border control had seemed pretty interested in me, much to the amazement of the American girl who was sitting next to me. I was expecting this, I said to her. I was told to expect this. My passport was critically looked at, and they kept asking me to verify my age, as I apparently looked way younger than the age stated on the passport. I was also asked many times for my final destination and what I was going to do there. Believe me, it wasn't very easy for me to keep pronouncing Bydgoszcz, and back then I pronounced it way differently from how I am pronouncing it right now. Getting a train to Bydgoszcz was very stressful, as I was tired of tugging 4 bags, one mostly filled with shoes which turned out to just be excess luggage. I left them somewhere and tried not to look as dead as I felt, and ignored the curious looks I got. From nowhere, a not-so-clean-looking boy started to point at me and shout something. I froze. Others did not seem interested in what he was saying, and so I quickly added him and his actions to my list of things to be ignored. I met so many helpful people in Poznan. There was a girl who talked her head off of how she doesn't see color and how races could go F-U-C-K themselves. There was a really nice Catholic priest who spoke English haltingly and was surprised that I was headed to Bydgoszcz. I finally arrived and met 2 of my friends who I was meeting for the first time in person, who took me to the flat that had been rented. Life in Bydgoszcz. It was like I was in a movie, at least that's how I chose to see it. Some people I came in close contact with were nice and pretty helpful. Others just pointed at me and stared openly. I would walk towards people, see them giving themselves nudges, and then turning to stare. Some people would walk over to me to have a chat. But sadly, there were lots of communication issues. Being black in a city like Bydgoszcz certainly had its perks. Once, I was seated at the bus stop playing Candy Crush and totally engrossed in it. Suddenly, I heard the bus honk, and the driver beckoned to me with his hands going like, "Aren't you going home?" If I had missed that bus, I would have had to stay in the cold for 30 minutes for the next one. Also, I had the inspector of police give me his number and tell me to call him if I had any issues, no matter what they might be. That made me feel very cool and also worried the heck out of me, and made me remember all the warnings I had gotten before moving to Poland. Anytime anything happened to a foreigner, the police always came to check on me to ensure that I was all right. Sadly, living in Bydgoszcz came with its fair share of issues. Having to answer silly questions about life on a rescue boat, living in the wild, jungle language, how I find civilization to be, and surprised at me knowing coffee, honey, cheese, and so on. There were much more serious issues encountered, those which had my manager or his friend have to escort me anywhere I went late evenings, and of course, police intervention once. I also developed a heightened sense of knowing when I was being followed, which seemed to happen a lot. Initial living conditions. My first landlady spoke very little English and was the kind of person who smiled at you while lying through her teeth. The house was extremely dirty, with leftover food in the oven when I moved in. The cupboards had stuff: iron, soap, tea bags, plastic bags, pasta, and such in them. All these things were probably left over by the previous tenant. She even had the nerve to ask me if I wanted to have the toiletries and food. I politely asked her to trash it. Some days later, it turned out that she hadn't paid the utility bills, and I came back from work freezing to an apartment with no electricity and no heating. She brought me a candle. Wow, so nice. A week after that, the water supply was cut. By then, I had had enough and was completely fed up. As I sat extremely miserable in my flat, I started to check out flights to Paris. After all, I had a job waiting there for me, with the promise of another. As I was checking flights, I remembered a friend betting that I would not survive in Poland for more than 3 months. I hate losing bets, and so I decided to stay for 6 months just to prove her wrong, and show her that I could be tough when put in not so pleasant situations. Over the course of the next few months, things started to look up. I learned to ignore the curious looks from the people. I started to actually make out words of the language. I also started to block out the complaining attitude of the Poles. I decided to move into another apartment, and my first landlady promised to return my deposit, but never did so. Sadly, the landlady in the new place I moved to turned me into her bank, constantly borrowing huge sums of money, which she didn't even try to pay back. Of course, I just took it out of the rent. It turned out that she was owing banks and people money, and that the banks had even frozen her accounts and were taking any money that came into it. This didn't stop her from shopping in designer stores too. I moved out again after so many failed home improvement promises and advice from my co-workers. She made several appointments to give me back my deposit in cash after claiming to have transferred the deposit back 3 times from her friend's account. She never showed up for any of the appointments, and 4 failed appointments later, she stopped picking my calls. Things continued to get better. My next and last landlord was the best landlord ever. I even made more friends and met another black girl. Suddenly, it made sense when people would tell me how they saw me in so and so place, and I acted like I didn't know them. They were meeting the other black girl in the city. Of course, I and other black girl became very good friends. I also started to go out more without being too scared, but still chaperoned. I toured the city more with friends. Over the course of years, I came up with the idea of helping other expats find it easy to settle in a country with one of the hardest languages, especially for native English speakers. I got an award for this. Thank you for my company. I appreciate it. Till date, I keep thanking God for the fact that I hate losing bets. I would have left this quaint city, missing out on making genuine friendships. Also, I would never have known that I could outdrink a lot of Polish people and not get drunk. That said, please note that I do not drink often. Bydgoszcz also offers the opportunity to take a break from the hectic city life and reconnect with the truly important things in life. There are nice and not so nice people everywhere. Every city in the world has its good and not so good sides. It just depends on how you choose to say things and what your priorities are. I did move from Bydgoszcz almost 3 years after. But do I regret that experience? Not one bit. Would I move back permanently? No, thank you. Obviously, this is not to bash the city. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my story of Bydgoszcz. If you have stayed all the way to the end of this, I appreciate it. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you have any tips for people living outside their country, please share below in the comment section. If you would like to suggest things about Bydgoszcz that people will find very useful, please do so as well in the comment section. Bye for now.